Hello, I'm Ferdinand Hogroian. I'm a director in PwC's Washington National Tax Practice. I'm joined today by Mike Zargari, a state and local tax partner in New York City. Mike, thanks for joining us here today. We're going to be talking about the New York Department of Taxation and Finance's adoption on December 27th of final tax reform regulations. Mike, now that these regulations are final, what should taxpayers be thinking about?
Thanks, Ferdinand. So it's an exciting time in New York that we finally have the regulations. It's been a long process since about 2015. And I think the big takeaway is that these regs are going to be applied retroactively by the department. So particularly for clients, taxpayers that are under audit, it's something that they'll want to keep in mind to see whether or not the auditors will apply these retroactively, whether there are any benefits to doing so, or whether there are any issues with doing so. There are some areas within the regulations that have changed from earlier versions. By and large, this is consistent with what was proposed last August, but there are some areas where there have been divergences from earlier drafts over the years. I think another big takeaway, Ferdinand, one thing to keep in mind is that these regulations only apply for purposes of the New York State corporate tax. They don't apply for purposes of New York State partnerships and individuals, but they also don't apply for purposes of the New York City corporation tax. And so New York City is in the process of adopting its own, or working on its own regulations. It could be another year or two before they actually adopt them. And we'll have to see whether or not they diverge in certain areas. New York City has said that they plan to largely conform to the New York State regulations. But again, we'll have to see if there are any areas where they don't do so.
Thank you, Mike. And while we have you here, what are your thoughts on the New York budget process from a tax perspective?
Yeah, so, the governor's executive budget was pretty light, I would say, on revenue raising, proposals. And it's consistent with the governor's stated approach of avoiding tax increases. But the legislature, is going to have different goals. And there are numerous bills currently in the legislature to raise taxes, to raise revenues in different areas. And so we're going to have to see how the push and pull of that process goes. We'll have to take a look at the 30-day amendments to the governor's budget when those come out. And, the budget bill is due April 1st. Last year's was not passed on time. So we really have to see, one, what's going to be included in the final budget, and two, when is it actually going to be enacted?
Great. Thanks, Mike. We'll be watching for that. And thank you for joining us here today. And thank you all for joining us. Take care.